Not every problem needs an immediate answer. That is the first thing to understand. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is step back, not to run away, not to give up, but to reset. Because when life becomes too loud, when people become too demanding, when your mind becomes too full, you stop thinking clearly. You start reacting instead of understanding. You start making decisions based on pressure, based on emotions, based on confusion. And that is how people lose themselves. Slowly, quietly, without even noticing. This is why sometimes you need to disappear. Not forever, not dramatically, just enough. Just enough to find yourself again. Just enough to breathe. Just enough to think clearly. Just enough to remember who you are without everyone else's noise. Disappearing is not weakness. It is control. It is choosing yourself. In a world that constantly pulls your attention in every direction, let's talk about what this really means. Disappearing does not mean you cut everyone off. It does not mean you ignore responsibilities. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you reduce the noise. You limit distractions. You take space from things that are draining you. And you focus on what actually matters. Your mind, your growth, your direction. Because if you don't take time for yourself, you will slowly lose clarity. And without clarity, you make poor decisions. You stay in wrong situations. You tolerate things you should not tolerate. You accept less than you deserve. Not because you want to, but because you are too tired to think clearly. Too overwhelmed to choose better. This is how people stay stuck. Not because they cannot leave, but because they are too drained to try. That is why stepping back matters. Now, let's go deeper. There are moments in life where everything feels heavy. Your thoughts are crowded. Your emotions are mixed. You feel pressure from different directions. Work, relationships, expectations, responsibilities. And in all that noise, your own voice becomes quiet. You stop listening to yourself. You stop asking what you need, what you want, what is right for you. And when that happens, you start living on autopilot, just reacting, just surviving, just getting through the day, without direction, without purpose, without peace. That is the moment you need to disappear, not from life, but from the noise. Because clarity does not come from chaos. It comes from stillness. It comes from space. It comes from silence. And silence is something you have to create, intentionally. Now, here is something important. When you disappear, some people will not understand. They will question you. They will think you are changing. They will think you are pulling away. They will think you are becoming distant. And in a way, you are, but not in a negative way. You are becoming more focused, more intentional, more aware. And not everyone will be comfortable with that. Because when you change, the way people relate to you also changes. Some people are used to having constant access to you, your time, your attention, your energy. And when you reduce that, they feel it. But that does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are setting boundaries, healthy boundaries, necessary boundaries. Because without boundaries, people will take more than you can give. Not always intentionally, but it happens. And if you keep giving without rest, without balance, without time for yourself, you burn out. And when you burn out, you have nothing left to give, not to others, not even to yourself. So disappearing, in a healthy way, is not selfish. It is necessary. Now, let's talk about what you should do during this time. Because disappearing is not just about stepping away. It is about what you do with that space. First, rest. Real rest. Not just sleeping, but mental rest. Time away from stress. Time away from constant thinking. Time to just exist without pressure. Because a tired mind cannot think clearly. Second, reflect. Ask yourself simple questions. What is working in my life? What is not? What is draining me? What is helping me grow? What do I need more of? What do I need less of? Be honest. Not ideal. Not perfect. Just honest. Third, focus on growth. This can be learning something new, improving a skill, working on your goals, doing something that moves your life forward, even in small steps. Because progress builds confidence, and confidence brings clarity. Fourth, reconnect with yourself. Do things you enjoy, things that make you feel like you, not what others expect, not what others want, but what feels right to you. Because sometimes, you forget who you are under all the pressure, and this is your chance to remember. Now, here is something powerful. When you take time to focus on yourself, you start seeing things differently. Situations that once felt confusing become clear. People who once seemed important may feel less important. Problems that once felt big may feel smaller, because your perspective changes. And perspective changes everything. You start making better decisions. You start setting better boundaries. You start choosing better, not because life became easier, but because you became clearer. And clarity is powerful. It protects you. It guides you. It keeps you from going back to things that hurt you. Now, let's talk about coming back. Because disappearing is not permanent. You come back. But you come back different, stronger, clearer, more focused. You don't return to the same patterns. You don't return to the same habits. You don't return to the same level of availability. You carry your growth with you, and that changes how you move, how you respond, how you live. People will notice. Some will respect it, some will not. But the most important thing is, you will respect yourself, because you chose yourself, when it mattered. And that builds something deep, something real, something strong. Finally, understand this. You do not always need to be available. You do not always need to respond immediately. You do not always need to be involved in everything. Sometimes, the strongest move is to step back, to go quiet, to focus, to rebuild, to grow. Because you cannot pour into your life if you are constantly pouring yourself out to everyone else. Take time, when you need it, without guilt, without fear, without overthinking. Because disappearing for the right reasons is not losing yourself. It is finding yourself, again. And sometimes, that is exactly what you need. I run on subscribers, not batteries. If this gave you something real, that button costs you nothing and it means everything.